What pushes a person to the edge? Is it nature, nurture, or something else entirely? Today, we're exploring the life of Aileen Wuornos, a name that many recognize, but few understand the full story behind. Her case raises profound questions about the justice system, mental health, and the cycles of trauma that can shape a life. This isn't just a true crime story, it's a look into a fractured human experience. Aileen's story begins with a childhood that was anything but ordinary. Born in Michigan in 1956, she never knew her father. Her mother, unable to cope, left Aileen and her brother with their grandparents. This early abandonment set the stage for a life of instability. Her home life was far from a safe haven. Reports and her own accounts describe a deeply troubled environment, one that left permanent scars long before she ever committed a crime. By her early teens, she was already on her own, navigating a world that seemed to offer her no protection or support. This period of her life is crucial to understanding the person she would become. She was a runaway, living on the streets, learning to survive in the harshest of conditions. As a young adult, Aileen drifted across the country, often hitchhiking, taking on odd jobs, and finding herself in precarious situations. Her life was a constant struggle for survival. She had minor run-ins with the law for things like forgery and carrying a weapon without a permit. These weren't the actions of a hardened criminal mastermind, but rather the desperate attempts of someone trying to get by with no resources and no support system. It's a pattern we see repeated. Small offenses escalating over time, a cry for help that goes unanswered. Each arrest, each difficult encounter seemed to push her further to the fringes of society, making it harder and harder for her to find a way back to a stable life. The pivotal chapter of Aileen's life began in late 1989. Over the course of about a year, a series of men were found deceased along Florida's highways. The victims were all middle-aged men who had picked up a hitchhiker. Law enforcement connected the cases, realizing they were searching for a serial offender. The investigation intensified, and the media dubbed the perpetrator the Damsel of Death. It was a sensational title for a deeply complex and tragic situation. The public was captivated and frightened by the idea of a female serial killer, a rarity in the annals of crime. The search for the suspect culminated in Aileen's arrest in January 1991 at a bar in Port Orange, Florida. Her then-partner, Tyria Moore, cooperated with the police, eventually coaxing a confession from Aileen over the phone. These recorded conversations became key evidence in her trials. Aileen confessed to the killings but maintained a consistent claim. She acted in self-defense. She alleged that each of her victims had become aggressive and that she had to use lethal force to protect herself from harm. This claim of self-defense became the central point of contention in her legal battles and in the public's perception of her case. Aileen Wuornos' trials were a media sensation. She was portrayed in many different lights, sometimes as a cold-blooded killer, other times as a victim of a brutal life. Her defense team argued that her traumatic past and the circumstances of her life on the road, where she often encountered dangerous situations, should be taken into account. They tried to paint a picture of a woman who was constantly in fear for her life. The prosecution, however, focused on the evidence and the pattern of the crimes, arguing that they were premeditated acts. They presented her as a predator who targeted men for their money and vehicles. The courtroom became a theater where these two conflicting narratives played out. Aileen's own behavior during the trials was often erratic. She would have outbursts, fire her lawyers, and make contradictory statements. Some observers believed this was evidence of severe mental distress, a result of a lifetime of trauma. Others saw it as manipulation, an attempt to disrupt the legal process. This erratic behavior made it difficult for her defense to present a coherent case and likely damaged her credibility in the eyes of the jury. Ultimately, The jury sided with the prosecution. Aileen was convicted of murder. Over several trials, she was sentenced for multiple killings and sent to death row. Her case brought up intense debates. Was she a monster, born with a capacity for violence? Or was she a product of her environment, a tragic figure created by a society that failed her at every turn? There are no easy answers, and people continue to debate these questions to this day. Her story forces us to look at the grey areas, to consider how much a person's past influences their future actions. During her time on death row, Aileen's mental state appeared to deteriorate further. In interviews, she made increasingly bizarre claims, at one point recanting her self-defense story and stating she committed the murders for robbery. Then she recanted that, claiming she was trying to speed up her execution because she couldn't bear life in prison. Her final interviews show a woman who seemed completely disconnected from reality, making claims about sonic pressure and conspiracies. This raises another critical question. Was a person in her mental condition competent to be executed? Mental health professionals who examined her offered differing opinions. Some believe she was exaggerating her symptoms, while others diagnosed her with serious personality disorders and post-traumatic stress disorder, compounded by years of hardship. The legal system determined she was sane enough to be executed. In 2002, Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection in Florida. Her final words were, "I'd just like to say, I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie. Big mothership and all, I'll be back." The story of Aileen Wuornos didn't end with her death. It has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and even an award-winning feature film. Why does her story continue to resonate? Perhaps it's because it holds up a mirror to society. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about poverty, trauma, and the shortcomings of our social safety nets and justice system. It's a reminder that people are not born in a vacuum. Their lives are shaped by their experiences, their opportunities, and the support they receive or don't receive. Aileen's case is a powerful case study in criminal psychology and sociology. It challenges our simple definitions of good and evil. While her actions were terrible and resulted in the loss of many lives, understanding the full context of her life doesn't excuse her crimes, but it does provide a more complete picture. It moves the conversation from simple condemnation to a more nuanced discussion about prevention, rehabilitation, and the root causes of violence. How many others are living on the edge, failed by the systems meant to protect them? The legacy of Aileen Wuornos is a complex and somber one. It serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of a childhood without safety and a life without hope. Her story compels us to ask difficult questions and to seek better ways to support the most vulnerable members of our society. It's a tragic tale from every angle, for the victims and their families, and for the woman whose life took such a dark and destructive path. Thank you for joining me in exploring this complex and challenging story. If you found this discussion thought-provoking, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. We'll see you in the next one.